Welcome to Should a Dad Play, the series where dads like us review video games for dads like you. Today, we'll be reviewing Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora on the PlayStation 5. What's up, everyone? With Dad's XP, my name's Paul Irizarry, and like I said before, we're going to be reviewing Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora today. But before that, if you like these videos, make sure to drop a like down below and subscribe to the channel. Dad's XP is funded by ourselves, myself and my partner, Perk Hayes, CJ Hayes, as you guys know him, and we would enjoy your support. Without any further delay, let's go ahead and review Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora. All right, so this review is actually going to be a little bit off the scripts, simply because I know exactly how to explain this game to those of you that have already played this franchise. And if not, I'll go a little bit more in depth regarding it. But if you have played Far Cry, and I know you've seen this in other reviews and other people talking about it, but it's very much so accurate. If you've played Far Cry, you've played this game. Specifically, if you've played Far Cry Primal, you have played this game. So Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora, it's a very great Avatar game. I guess the best way to explain it is if it were a movie tie-in game like the ones we used to get back in the PS3, Xbox 360 era, this would be up there. It'd be high up there in that sense. However, being 2023, almost 2024, and the oversaturation from Ubisoft of Far Cry titles and the formula being the same, it kind of retracts a lot from the game. Now, there's a lot of hiccups I have with this game as well. Some of them being it's a pro and a con, really. It depends on what you're trying to get out of it. For me personally, not my cup of tea. And what I mean by that is this game does not handhold you at all, and it almost feels like the button tutorials, like just the initial few steps that you get into playing the game, kind of like fall short, right? What I mean by that is you learn how to jump, you learn how to double jump, you learn how to aim, you learn how to use the weapon wheel, which is all standard, except in this game the buttons aren't all necessarily, like, the control scheme isn't necessarily standard. Granted, you could always customize that, but if you're just playing the game by default, the buttons as is aren't normal, if that makes sense. Like, some certain button combinations don't really work the way they standardly do. And on top of that, the tutorial just kind of just like leaves you up in the air halfway through. So you're often finding yourself kind of lost and not knowing where to go. Not just that, but the navigation is also, when you're out in the open world, it's also very just, you got to explore and you got to immerse yourself, which is great. And a lot of times when I was playing this game, I thought to myself, man, this would be a phenomenal VR game if I was just immersed, completely, fully immersed in the Avatar, I guess, ecosystem and world. However, if I just want to sit down and play a video game and do objective A, B, and C, you're really not going to get that. The game really makes you use your senses to kind of find where to go next, and it gives you a general idea. Like, you can look at the map and it'll give you like a general location of where you got to go, but you really have to hone in on your Avatar senses and kind of figure it all out and piece it together. Which, again, it depends on what type of game you want. This is very much so a less hand-holdy type of game. Not criticizing it because it's not easy or anything like that. It's just it abruptly stops, if that makes sense. It's the way it approaches it is kind of weird. On top of that, and in terms of combat and everything else, it's very far. Again, you've played Far Cry. It's the same thing. You can approach things in a stealth manner. You can approach things in a guns blazing, trying to shoot things down. Traversal is very much so like in Far Cry Primal. You're just in the woods in the Avatar world, which is beautiful. Don't get me wrong. This game looks great in terms of the world, and I think Avatar has always done that in the franchise. The world looks great. The fauna, the flora, everything looks phenomenal. But models and the characters themselves, so for human models, they just look all right. They're just human models. Nothing special, nothing graphically impressive there. In terms of the Avatar themselves, it can get kind of confusing. Like, there's not, in my opinion, nothing differentiates them quite enough for you to just quickly off the glance just identify who you're talking to, right? Most of the time I had my subtitles on to just kind of, like, if I wanted to be quiet while playing the game, I just read. So I knew who was who. But if you're just looking at the character and the model, it's really hard to differentiate who's who in terms of Avatar. There's no like distinguishing features and whatnot. In terms of the story, it's a pretty standard Avatar story. You don't need to watch any of the other Avatar movies to kind of play through it and understand it. There's really no tie-in. There's some mention here and there, but there's not a direct tie-in to the movies. And also, Overall, like the overall story is very Avatar-y, if that makes sense. It's usually just humans versus Avatar, and we're destroying the ecosystem, and pretty straightforward, right? Yeah. So without getting into any spoilers, that's exactly what the story is about. So let's go ahead and break this down, dad to dad, right? I'm just here talking to you. Would I pick this game up over Call of Duty? Yes, story-wise, especially Modern Warfare 3. I bet you guys have watched the Game Awards and heard the joke. But sincerely, though, if I'm going to talk about Call of Duty or multiplayer games or games like that, it's not a fair judgment. But if I were to compare Avatar Frontiers of Pandora to any of the other Far Cry games, it'd be better than Primal, in my opinion, but I would probably pick other Far Cry titles over this. Again, it's really hard to compare because it's a skinned version of Far Cry, so you have a bunch of features here and there that are okay. But as a dad to another dad, it ain't a priority. You can pick this game up on a sale. It's going to be fun for a minute or two. But again, if you're doing a lot of things, you have a lot of responsibilities as a parent or whatnot, and you have to come back to the game and then re-immerse yourself into it, that's going to probably take too much time. It did for me personally. And again, I'm trying to find the pros and the cons on both sides. Now, if you love immersing yourself in video games and you have the time to immerse yourself in the Avatar, and you're a fan of Avatar, the franchise, this might be a really good game for you though, because you do have to immerse yourself. You get familiar with all the plants, all the animals that you can go ahead and hunt. And again, there's a lot of hunting and crafting and cooking, and depending on how you gather your materials, or depending on how you hunt. If you use a weapon to hunt, for example, like a gun, it damages your meat. But if you hunt the prey properly, you get pristine meat. So it adds some benefits here and there. So, there's a little bit of intricacies there. But again, that you have to immerse yourself into this game. And a lot of the time, the game doesn't explicitly tell you about these things. You just kind of have to figure it out, which isn't a bad thing. It's just a different approach, right? So ultimately, in terms of controls, they're pretty standard except for some awkward positioning for some of the buttons that you have to press. But other than that, it's a pretty standard game. It's not going to, the award show already happened. It's not going to win any awards next year either. But ultimately, if we're going to go ahead and review Avatar Frontiers of Pandora and give it a score, it's going to get a 7 out of 10. This is one of those low 7s, just barely hitting that 7 out of 10. Again, it's not for everyone. If you're pretty pressed on time and you have to relearn the buttons every time you play a video game, this probably won't be the game for you, especially since you have to immerse yourself in the world to get a full grasp of it. But that doesn't mean it's a bad game. It's a really good game for what it is. I'm sure the fan base for Avatar will appreciate this game a lot. I do wish it had some other modes, like a VR mode, just because I think the game is set perfectly for a perfect VR game, but that would entail too much in the background for them to edit and add into it, so don't expect that anytime soon. But again, Avatar Frontiers of Pandora is going to get a 7 out of 10 from Dad's XP, but let us know what you think in the comments down below. Maybe you like this game, and this is your game of the year. Maybe this is your 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10. Sound off down below. Let us know. Until next time, my name's Paul Irizarry with Dad's XP. Take it easy. Bye-bye.